US just confessed something that left even Washington stunned, and it's about Filipinos. For decades, they called us allies, workers, partners, but behind the diplomatic smiles and military deals, America finally admitted what it's been hiding. The US can't function without Filipinos. Not in hospitals, not in bases, not in classrooms. The truth? We're not America's helpers. We're its hidden foundation. And this revelation changes everything. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments, and I will give you a heart. Let's stop pretending. America didn't just notice Filipinos, it's been quietly depending on us for decades. The difference is, this time, they finally said it out loud. For years, Filipinos have been the quiet gears turning inside America's biggest machines: hospitals, the military, education, logistics, caregiving, and yes, even the White House kitchen. But the confession the US just made, it's not about employment, it's about reliance. Here's the unfiltered truth. The United States isn't just our ally, it's our client. Because the one resource they can't print, automate, or outsource to AI is the Filipino work ethic. It's easy to dismiss that as pride talking until you see the data. In 2025, the US Department of Labor released its latest workforce assessment. It revealed something staggering. 1 in every 5 foreign-born healthcare professionals in the US is Filipino. That's over 400,000 nurses, therapists, and caregivers holding up America's aging population. Think about that. A country of 330 million people, the richest nation on earth, needs the hands of Filipinos to keep its citizens alive and cared for. And it's not just the hospitals. The US Navy just confirmed in its 2025 personnel report that Filipino Americans make up the largest foreign heritage group in active service. Over 45,000 strong. That's more than any other Asian group combined. We're not just working for the US, we're defending it. Quietly, faithfully, relentlessly. But here's where the confession gets deeper. In a closed-door press briefing this year, a senior official from the US Department of Homeland Security admitted that the Filipino diaspora is the most reliable, most integrated, and least controversial immigrant community in the United States. As diplomats speak for, you're the glue that keeps us steady. Let that sink in. While other immigrant groups get headlines, Filipinos get results. We don't riot, we rebuild. We don't demand credit, we deliver excellence. That's why the US healthcare system didn't collapse during the pandemic. That's why thousands of US veterans are still alive today. Because a Filipino nurse refused to clock out when everyone else did. But there's irony in all this, isn't there? Filipinos were once colonized by America, now we sustain it. The former student has become the teacher. The once conquered now quietly anchors the empire. Let's rewind for a second. After World War II, the US needed help rebuilding its infrastructure and healthcare system. Who did they call? Filipinos. By the 1960s, Filipino nurses were already being recruited en masse under the exchange visitor program. Not out of charity, but necessity. Fast forward to today, and that small migration wave turned into an ocean of contribution worth billions. In 2024 alone, Filipino Americans sent $14,600,000,000 in remittances back home, making the US the single largest source of remittance inflow to the Philippines. But flip that around. If Filipinos stopped working in the US today, economists estimate the American healthcare and service sectors would lose over $62 billion in productivity within months. That's not emotional talk, that's hard math. And yet, despite all this, we rarely hear the US speak about Filipinos the way we deserve. We're called resilient, which is really code for you endure anything we throw at you. We're labeled friendly, which often means you won't complain. And maybe that's part of why this recent confession hit so hard. Because it wasn't about flattery, it was about truth. A senior US lawmaker put it best last month during an Asian Pacific Heritage hearing. If there's one community we can always rely on, it's the Filipino community. You've cared for our elderly, raised our children, built our homes, and served in our military. America wouldn't run the same without you. That wasn't just applause, that was acknowledgement, a long overdue one. And while the audience clapped, millions of Filipinos watching online felt something shift. Because for the first time, the most powerful country in the world finally admitted it needs us. Not just for our hands, but for our humanity. Still, let's not sugarcoat it. Many Filipinos in America are still underpaid, overworked, and underrepresented. There's respect, yes, but there's also quiet exploitation. And that's where the confession becomes complicated. America's truth isn't just flattering, it's revealing. It exposes a dependency they can't talk about too loudly. Because the day Filipinos stop showing up, entire systems would fall apart. But here's the twist. That dependence is becoming respect. America is starting to realize that the Filipino contribution isn't charity, it's strategy. We're not guests in their story, we're co-authors. So the next time someone says Filipinos are everywhere, remember, it's not an accident, it's architecture. The world's strongest empire runs smoother because we're in the mix. Comment, proud Pinoy, if you believe this isn't just a confession, it's proof of how quietly powerful we've always been. The truth didn't come out in some grand White House announcement. It leaked through actions, headlines, and statistics that spoke louder than any press release could. The US didn't plan to confess its dependence on Filipinos, simply became too big to hide. It started in hospitals. In 2025, the American Nurses Association reported that 1/3 of all foreign-educated nurses in the US are Filipino. That's more than 150,000 Filipino nurses actively serving in US hospitals, many in critical care and emergency units. To put it bluntly, if Filipinos didn't show up for work tomorrow, nearly 800 hospitals would be understaffed overnight. That's not hyperbole, that's math. When COVID-19 hit, America saw it firsthand. While some healthcare workers resigned under the crushing weight of burnout, Filipinos stayed. They became the calm in the chaos. The New York Times even ran a headline in 2024, "The Unsung Filipino Army That Carried U.S. Healthcare Through the Pandemic." The piece quoted a hospital director from Texas saying Filipino nurses didn't just work, they kept the system alive. But this quiet dominance didn't stop at hospitals. It reached all the way to the Pentagon. In May 2025, the US Department of Defense released an internal morale assessment noting that Filipino American service members demonstrate the highest retention and performance rates across all Asian heritage groups. Why? Because they embody something uniquely Filipino. Discipline mixed with empathy is that rare balance between toughness and heart. And yet, here's the part that stings. For decades, America viewed Filipinos as the friendly allies from the Pacific, a useful relationship that didn't need headlines. But when Filipino nurses began outnumbering locals in certain states, and when Filipino engineers started leading NASA tech teams, yes, that's happening. The tone shifted. Respect replaced politeness. Dependence replaced formality. During a 2025 U.S. Senate hearing on immigrant workforce reform, Senator Cory Booker said something that no one in Washington dared to say before. We talk about immigration as if it's charity, but without Filipino healthcare workers, our hospitals collapse. Without Filipino teachers, our schools suffer. Without Filipino veterans, our military loses its spirit. We don't just owe them thanks, we owe them credit. That statement went viral not just in America, but across Asia. Because it wasn't a soundbite, it was an awakening. Filipinos weren't just immigrants anymore, they were infrastructure. Still, for all the recognition, there's a painful undercurrent running beneath it. Filipinos in the US often carry what psychologists now call invisible hero fatigue. They're celebrated publicly, but stretched privately. Many juggle two worlds, working 12-hour shifts in America while sending half their paycheck to support families in the Philippines. It's not just hard work, it's emotional labor, the kind that can't be quantified yet keeps both nations running. Take Maria, a nurse from Iloilo now working in Chicago. She's been in the US for 8 years and sends money home every month. "I help my parents, my siblings, even my cousin's tuition," she says, forcing a smile. "Some days I feel proud, other days I feel empty." That's the duality of the Filipino experience abroad. Pride and pain, perfectly balanced. And maybe that's why America's confession carries so much weight. It's not just acknowledging labor, it's acknowledging sacrifice. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics recently projected that by 2030, the U.S. will need 2.6 million more healthcare workers just to maintain basic standards. Guess which country's professionals they're prioritizing for recruitment? The Philippines. American recruiters are already offering fast-track visas and housing incentives to lure Filipino nurses, therapists, and technicians. But here's the twist. This time, it's not desperation, it's respect. A new White House report titled "Building a Human Bridge, the Filipino-American Workforce Contribution," released in late 2025, praised Filipinos for being the most trusted international workforce partner in the US. That's official acknowledgement not from a diplomat, but from data. And it's spreading beyond healthcare. From California tech hubs to New York finance firms, Filipino professionals are quietly climbing the ranks. Google's 2025 internal diversity audit revealed that Filipinos make up 11% of its Asian workforce in North America, the fastest growth rate among any Asian subgroup. In Silicon Valley boardrooms, Tagalog is now whispered between meetings like a secret badge of belonging. But here's where it gets even deeper. America's admiration for Filipinos isn't just professional, it's personal. Cultural integration has made Filipinos one of the most beloved communities in the country. The Pew Research Center found that 91% of Americans view Filipinos favorably, the highest rating of any Asian ethnic group. Think about that. While other communities still struggle for acceptance, Filipinos quietly earned trust through consistency, humility, and heart. And so when US officials say we value the Filipino people, they're not just being diplomatic, they're being honest. America finally realizes it can't just import Filipino labor, it's importing Filipino values, compassion, dedication, faith, family, things their own culture is starting to lose and desperately needs to remember. So yes, America confessed, but it didn't confess weakness, it confessed gratitude. And that's rare. Because in a world where power often speaks without empathy, the US just admitted that strength isn't about dominance, it's about dependence built on trust. And yet this confession is just the beginning. Because once America realized who keeps its heart beating, it had to ask itself one uncomfortable question. What happens if Filipinos stop showing up? Prohibition. We'll answer that in the next part, but first, if you believe America's confession isn't just a compliment, but a global turning point, comment respect below, because this truth isn't just theirs anymore, it's ours. America's confession didn't just reveal dependence, it exposed a quiet power shift. For decades, the United States viewed Filipinos as loyal allies, reliable workers, the friendly faces behind their institutions. But after 2025, that narrative flipped. The Filipino community isn't standing behind America anymore, we're standing within it, shaping its hospitals, fueling its economy, guarding its borders, and redefining what power looks like in modern America. And here's a twist the world didn't see coming. This wasn't orchestrated through politics, weapons, or wealth. It happened through presence, the kind that can't be debated or ignored. Walk into any US hospital base or university and you'll see what I mean. Filipinos aren't just workers, they're decision makers, nurse supervisors, program coordinators, tech managers, even policy consultants for federal healthcare systems. That's no coincidence, that's generational consistency paying off. America didn't build that trust overnight, Filipinos earned it, year after year, shift after shift, smile after smile. In early 2025, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, released an internal acknowledgement report stating, Filipino healthcare professionals are indispensable to the United States healthcare infrastructure. Their continued participation directly impacts patient care quality and system stability. That's bureaucratic language for, we can't do this without you. And this doesn't stop at healthcare. Let's talk about education. The National Center for Education Statistics, NCES, shows that Filipino teachers now make up 9% of all foreign educators in the US, particularly in STEM subjects, the highest rate among all Asian immigrant groups. In states like Texas, Hawaii, and California, Filipino educators are transforming entire districts. They're not just teaching, they're molding the next generation of Americans. But here's where it gets deeper. Filipinos are no longer just part of the American system, we're becoming part of its identity. There are over 4.5 million Filipinos in the US, and according to the Pew Research Center, they are now the second largest Asian American group, right behind Chinese Americans. That's not just a number, that's influence, political, cultural, and generational influence. In fact, Filipino Americans have one of the highest rates of homeownership, education, and civic engagement among immigrant groups. Politicians know it. That's why in 2025, both major US political parties began courting Filipino voters openly, strategically, and for the first time in history. A leaked internal memo from one campaign even read, Filipinos are not swing voters. They are system stabilizers. We lose them, we lose states. Think about that. From invisible to influential, from employee to essential. That's the evolution happening right now. And it's not just inside the borders. The Philippines' relationship with the US has entered a new phase, one where respect feels mutual, not conditional. After years of diplomatic dance, Washington finally recognized what Manila brings to the table: strategic geography, resilient people, and unmatched cultural adaptability. In a 2025 joint statement, the U.S. Department of State described the Philippines as the heartbeat of Indo-Pacific stability and innovation. That's not a hollow compliment. It's geopolitical truth. While the U.S. maintains its presence in Asia through bases and alliances, it's Filipinos, not soldiers or diplomats, who actually bridge East and West. The caregivers, engineers, artists, and entrepreneurs. They're the real ambassadors of America's image abroad. But, and here's where the story twists again, this new power dynamic comes with pressure. Because when you become essential, people start noticing, expectations rise, and that's both a blessing and a burden. Many Filipinos in the US are still fighting to be treated equally, still facing subtle discrimination masked by politeness. They're praised publicly, but privately told to blend in. The same nation that can't survive without them still struggles to see them as equals. That's the hypocrisy beneath the compliment. Take Erwin, a physical therapist from Baguio, now living in Los Angeles. He leads a department of 40 people, most of them Americans. My boss calls me indispensable, he says. But when promotion time comes, they give it to someone else. They love my work. They just don't see my leadership. That's the paradox of Filipino excellence. Respected everywhere, recognized too late. Still, something's shifting. The younger generation of Filipino Americans isn't waiting for validation. They're claiming space. They're running for office, launching startups, directing Hollywood films, and winning science awards. The same generation, raised by nurses and factory workers, is now shaping policies and narratives that reach millions, and the US knows it. That's why 2025 marked the creation of the Filipino American Advisory Council under the U.S. Congress, a new body meant to ensure Filipino voices shape federal decisions. That's the kind of systemic power no one could have imagined 30 years ago. So what's next? The US may have confessed the truth, but what they do next will define history. Because the confession wasn't just about gratitude, it was about reckoning. America must now live with the fact that the people it once called helpers are now the ones helping it survive. And that changes everything. Because every time a Filipino nurse saves a patient, a Filipino teacher inspires a student, or a Filipino soldier stands guard under a foreign flag, it reinforces a truth the world can no longer ignore. You can't run a superpower without Filipino spirit. So yes, the US just confessed what it really thinks about Filipinos, but the world's reaction? That's the real story. Because once the strongest country on earth admits who it depends on, every other nation will have to do the same. We're no longer asking for a seat at the table, we built the table. Comment vision if you believe this isn't just America's awakening, it's the dawn of a new Filipino era.